Welcome to Policy on Demand. I'm Sindhu Blume.
And I'm Scott McCandless. It is the week of October 9th, and this is your Monday briefing. We're going to focus on U.S. domestic events, but before we dive in, a quick international tax note. We're hearing that the OECD's inclusive framework is close to finalizing its work on Amount A of Pillar 1, and we could see guidance come out in the near future, potentially as early as this week. So stay tuned for more on this.
And in Washington, we've been closely following the fallout from the new speaker elections in the House. And in a bit, we're going to hear from Chairman Dave Camp about the potential impact. First, Janice Mays joins us to give us the latest state of play in the House and what she's hearing. Janice, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So there's a lot going on that could call Congress's attention, but we're speaking with you on Monday morning. Where do things stand?
As of today, the House Republicans have scheduled a candidate forum internally within their conference for Tuesday, October 10th, tomorrow. And there are two announced candidates, the current Majority Leader, Steve Scalise, and the current Judiciary Committee Chair, Jim Jordan. And they will work until they have a majority for one of those candidates. And that should be something that just takes a few ballots to get to. But the bigger question is, when do they actually take that to the floor and nominate their speaker to be? Because as you watched these votes in the past, they can only lose 4 internally because the Democrats will be voting for Hakeem Jeffries, their leader, for speaker. So it's not clear to me that they will get to that near unanimity right away. This could take a while for them. And in the end, it could be one of these two candidates, or it could be a different candidate that rises that almost that entire caucus can agree to. So we don't quite know what's going to come over that. Over the weekend, a number of the Republican members of the House were on television, and in those Sunday programs talked about this process going faster than we've expected because of the recent events in Israel. So it is possible that outside events caused them to find their common candidate more quickly than we're expecting right now.
Janice, we currently have a funding bill that expires on November 17th. What effect might this have on whether we still have a possible shutdown and perhaps importantly from a tax perspective, a year-end tax bill?
It is yet one more disruption in a divided Congress. I think it makes shutdown on November 17th more likely. Now, I thought we'd have shutdown the last time. And this new speaker in the House, to be able to negotiate on this, needs to have that motion to vacate changed, because it was agreeing to a continuing resolution that was that final straw that brought down Speaker McCarthy in this context. So unless they make that threshold higher, the new speaker is going to have no real authority to negotiate either. So it is something that we don't quite know what's going to happen here, but we think all this disruption makes it even harder for this divided Congress to figure out how to govern.
Janice, thank you as always. Appreciate you being with us.
I love being here.
And now here is a conversation Andrew Pryor had with Chairman Camp on this same topic.
Welcome to Policy on Demand. I'm Andrew Pryor. There's been a flurry of activity with some chaos in Washington, and joining me to make sense of some of it is the former chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee and PwC's senior policy advisor, Dave Camp. Chairman Camp, welcome.
Thank you, Andrew. Great to be here.
So Chairman Camp, before we get into what's happening with the House Speaker, I want to do a temperature check about what companies are thinking about and what's top of mind in the conversations you've been having with them.
Well, I was speaking with some business members yesterday, and this went really to the top of the agenda because it really does call into question what will the end of the year look like. And of course, that's what many businesses are thinking about, is what legislation may get passed, what issues may be brought forward. And this is unprecedented. So it is, creates a lot of disarray. And at least there was no government shutdown earlier, but in just a few short days, there's a potential for another government shutdown. So they're wondering how this will impact the issues that they care very much about.
So I want to get into that a little bit more. But first, what's the mood within the House Republican Conference after this vote?
I think it's split. I mean, there are those who are strong supporters of Kevin McCarthy, former Speaker McCarthy, who I think are very angry about what happened because you had really a small number join with Democrats to remove the Speaker, who a vast majority of the conference supported. So they're going to have to work through this, but they think they are beginning to move on to this leadership election, the Speaker election, which will occur in just a few days, and that's going to really take their time. But and they're going to have to process this and try to move forward quickly because there's a lot of work to do, and this is a real distraction from that. And right now, they're not really able to move forward on some of the agenda items they care very much about because there's a Speaker pro tem, and they have to really now try to find a path forward to elect a leader that they can unite behind. And I think that's going to take some healing. The few who won feel very righteous in their approach and what they did. And then I think the anger in those who supported well over 200 members of Congress that supported former Speaker McCarthy, I think have to process through what this might mean going forward.
So Chairman Camp, you mentioned that the House is expected to begin the process of selecting a new Speaker, the two leading candidates being House Majority Leader Steve Scalise and House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan. How do you see the current Speaker selection process playing out?
Well, those seem to be the only two, at least, that are seeking the speakership at this point. And they each bring different strengths to this race. Steve Scalise, well-known in leadership, has certainly the staff and the team in place to really whip the votes and build the kind of organization that will take him over the finish line. Jim Jordan has his own strengths. He's, certainly for many in the Republican caucus, he's seen as a leader on the issues affecting President Biden. He's a Freedom Caucus member. He's closer to that small core group that actually did cause the change in the speakership. So he brings those strengths as well. It has less of the team in place in order to do this. So I think it's going to be something that has to play out. They will have, the candidates speak to the conference. I don't see this really being resolved on the first vote. I think this may take some time in order for them to coalesce around a particular individual. And the question remains, will anyone get in at this late date and will they pull votes from one or the other? I don't see anyone emerging at this point. Some have sort of made noises that they may emerge, but we'll see if they actually throw their hat in the ring.
So presumably the new speaker will have to deal with some of the same underlying problems that Kevin McCarthy did. So will they be able to govern any better than he was?
It's going to be a challenge for any speaker of this conference because the conference is divided and there are issues that divide them, particularly on funding, on Ukraine, on other things. It doesn't appear as if the motion to vacate rule, which allows one member to bring a rule forward and just a simple majority to remove the speaker, I don't see that rule changing at this point. Clearly, you would expect that a speaker might say, well, I'm not going to take this job if I can be removed so quickly. But I don't see this conference coming together to change that rule. It's a rule that had been in place for a very long time. It was only recently changed under Speaker PwC's speakership to a larger number and then went back in this conference. It was part of what Kevin McCarthy had to agree to in order to become the speaker. I don't see that small group, which it will take a majority to change that rule. I don't see them agreeing to that at this point. But again, that is problematic. It makes it difficult because often the legislative arena is about what you can get done, not about how pure the stand you're taking is. And sometimes if you don't participate in the negotiations, your position is worsened as opposed to if you do and sort of negotiate what you can. But that's one of the issues facing this Republican majority in the House, and we'll just have to see how that plays out.
And as you noted earlier, our viewers will want to know what this means for key legislative priorities such as government funding and a year-end tax package. So what are your thoughts, and what are you telling clients?
Well, I think one of the concerns is this disarray, if you will, over Republican leadership could get in the way of these end of year packages that we're hoping will take place, whether it's in the tax space or in the healthcare space. And I think there was thought that there would be something at the end of the year that would allow some of these concerns that businesses have to move forward. Obviously, there's issues that have to be worked out with those and what are they paired with and so forth. But I think if this leadership isn't resolved in a timely manner, any speaker is going to face the problem of, if you can't complete government funding by the new deadline near Thanksgiving, do you do another short-term CR? And I think that's going to be problematic for the House. So then that means, is there a government shutdown? And then that means, does that get in the way of finalizing some of these legislative priorities that people are very concerned about?
Well, Chairman Camp, thanks as always for joining us and sharing your insights.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Thank you to Chairman Camp and to Andrew Pryor for that insight. And if you're looking for more, included in the email with this episode is the latest Week in Review with Andrew Pryor, and another Week in Review follows this Friday.
And thank you as always for spending this time with us. Stay with Policy on Demand for the latest developments from Washington and around the world. Take care.